world of fan games or fan works in the Undertale community, there's, at least I like to think, two games that come up to mind when fans first think about fan games and fan works in general from 2017 to 2020. And that being the Dying is Gay game and Disbelief the Skeleton. These are two of the most popular games / stories ever put to this, and are usually the framework for other people's stories down the line, especially Disbelief. And I'll be comparing two iconic games of these two brothers in the checkmark format, like in the Glitchtown Underverse video, which if you haven't watched, I suggest I do. It's a really good video. And don't forget to follow my DVR for madness. Now, I just want to let this be known first that I will be referring to the unofficial version of Disbelief and not the official version of the game, since that version isn't even out yet and doesn't even have phase 2 yet, I think. And the unofficial version has all 4 phases and all completely adapted from the animation completely. And with that being said, yeah, Disbelief from a gameplay perspective is better. Last Breath, I've played both versions. The old version with the better sprite and the new version with the worse sprite, and they both have issues. Some attacks don't even do damage to you. You could be literally in the bone and you could just not do damage. And even like small things like the gravity, the blue heart gravity mechanic feels so weird. I swear, I've played Undertale, I've played Disbelief, and I've played Last Breath. Last Breath feels the weirdest compared to all of them. It's usable, it just feels the weirdest because it's more gradual, but when you let go, you're still kind of going up when compared to Undertale and Disbelief, where if you stop holding it, you're not going up anymore, you just stop in place, which helps with bone attacks. That is hard to do, especially when doing platforming. So, yeah. And even just comparing difficulty, Last Breath's very controversial, I like to say, flip screen mechanic, where basically the screen flips and your controls are inverted in which way, is a big learning curve and also a big difficulty skip, especially if you have no idea what you're doing and have no idea this was even gonna happen. Also, sometimes orange bones aren't coded correctly. I swear I will move with an orange bone and I will still take damage. I don't know why that happens. Is there just a bad coder? Does he just not know how to properly implement orange bones? I mean, I would assume so, since they work most of the time. But in this specific instance I'm showing, it just doesn't work. I take damage. What happened? Disbelief doesn't have this issue. It is playable. There aren't any attacks that I felt like were unfair or at least bugged. And even in the hardest phase of the game, I would like to say is phase 3, it's still beatable, especially since it even has an Undyne bit, and that's still beatable. Nothing in phases 1 through 4 feels like it's broken or it's cheap, you know? It doesn't feel like that. And even just talking from just small things, Disbelief, at least the unofficial version, feels more like an Undertale game, you could say. It feels more Undertale compared to Last Breath, which I don't know if that was the point that Zerchak was trying to go for, considering he even changed the individual bars in the bottom, like fight, item, act, mercy, and all that. They feel different, and you can't use mercy for some reason, and the only time you can use mercy is literally at the midway point of phase 1, I believe, or was the end, I don't know which way, and you no dialogue, just instant death. Okay. Well, I don't know why, but for some reason Gaster Blasters can hit you in the menu. Why? I implore anyone who is a casual fan of Undertale and wants to play more of any fight, or like Sans, please do not pick up Last Breath first. I'd suggest Bad Time Trio over Last Breath. At least that one's fair. That game isn't perfect either, but I suggest that even the Disbelief. I'd honestly say for casual fans, you pick up the unofficial Disbelief game. It is much better. So yeah, Disbelief, easy. Just takes us by a mile. It's not even close. Yeah, this is just another category that, Disbelief clears at. Neg diff, no diff, whatever you want to call it. Last Breath story gets silly. The basic premise of it is fine. It's very similar to Disbelief, considering how both Sans decided to take it into their own hands. Sans trying to fight you early, while Sans just fights harder, I guess, in Last Breath. And both of these stories involve multiple phases, and Disbelief handles that much better, and is much more believable than Last Breath by a long shot. Considering Last Breath has honestly something that I find to be completely egregious, is whatever the hell Zerchok was thinking with Phase 2.
Fuck no, baby!
Now, I will admit, he did say he was going to gut Phase 2 entirely from the newest version of Last Breath that he's making. Okay, this is editing Happy 12 here, and, good lord. Yeah, apparently Zerchok is no longer working on the game, and, I found out the controversy that happened 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah, that explains a lot. I was trying to find the video. Where it basically said that he was gonna gut Phase 2, and that video's gone off his channel. So, yeah, there goes that. So, yeah. But that isn't out yet, so I'm just gonna go off the version that we have now. And yeah, Phase 2 makes literally no sense. Had 0.001 out of 1 HP? So he's dead, but not dead. He's mostly
dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead.
What? This is the reason why there were all those. This is the reason why there were all those extended phases, because like people were just at one point memeing on it because of how he had a lot of last breaths, ironically enough. In Disbelief, each one, with the exception of maybe Phase 3, makes sense. In Phase 1, he's unsure of himself. He wants to fight you, but doesn't really at the same time, but has to because you killed his brother. But in Phase 2, he realizes, okay, you're a sack of shit.
I have enough of you, come!
You know what? Fuck you. Alright? And he just goes all out. But in the end, he realizes he's not naturally angry. He's not Sans. He's not Undyne. He's Papyrus. And in Phase 3, he fully realizes that by essentially manifesting Sans and Undyne and basically a whole new wind of fight. He's not even remotely tired. I mean, he's kind of tired, but he gets a new wind of strength and realization from determination, you could say. But around the end of the fight, that determination wavers because he realizes it wasn't real. None of this was. It's another realization that he doesn't have the guts to kill you. At all. He doesn't have it in him to, kill you outright, So that's where Phase 4 starts. And it's not hard. It doesn't increase in difficulty. It actually is easier. Arguably much easier than even Phase 1. Because it is. And it's just Papyrus trying to get you to understand him. Trying to get you to remind stuff, to get you to come back into the light. With all these references of like the bones skating on the skateboard, all the basketballs, all the balls and stuff. It's with the context of Undertale, that's strong. That's a very strong feeling to have. And by the end, choose whether you spare him or fight him. It's devastating. It's a emotionally tugging ending on both sides.
where if you kill him, he still believed in you, but Kara was fed up. And if you spare him, Papyrus is alone now. You killed everyone but him. And even taking away some of the emotional context behind it, just like the pure writing of the characters is super faithful. Papyrus is written better than a lot of other games and even other comic series out there. And especially in Phase 3, it's funny. And even the unofficial game even adds some stuff to the humor. Like this fucking Papyrus in a wheelchair. What the fuck? It's funny and heartbreaking. It's an emotional roller coaster, and it's 100% faithful to extending this singular character. While Last Breath fumbles it hard with dialogue like this, which is just kind of like, I never was that emotionally attached to Last Breath, because, I mean, it just felt like a weaker Disbelief, I'm not even gonna lie. And even going as far as it's a weaker Undertale, because there's no morality behind it. Sans just tries harder, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, Disbelief clears, no diff. Now, this is where things get heated. Before, it was kind of like Disbelief wrote the game and the story was just clearing everything. Now, this is where there's a bit of contention. This is the final one since there's not much else to go off of. But these two have like amazing soundtracks through and through. Last Breath has the most iconic 3-phase soundtrack of all time, I like to think. And Disbelief also has the best 4-phase soundtrack of all time. My personal favorites from Disbelief is Phase 2 and 4, especially 4. I love Phase 4. But hey, they may not be my all-time favorites, but Phase 3 and Phase 1, Interstellar Retribution, phenomenal. Like they're not top 10, but there's a lot of fierce competition. Let's just say that, including Last Breath's soundtrack. Not a slacker anymore. The slaughter continues, and of course, an enigmatic encounter. Well, yes, these tracks have been memed to hell in the Undertale community when they came out, and even still today, these are still honestly top 10 tracks in my opinion. Some even only being overtaken by Dust Trust OST. That is unbelievable. And I got a couple friends of mine to say what they rated, and some people preferred Disbelief, some preferred Last Breath on my YouTube poll and Twitter poll that I think 2 people even used. And me personally, I always find myself coming back to Last Breath's tracks more than Disbelief, and since that accounts for something, I'm gonna have to give Last Breath just the slight edge, because Ben Lab, he is a phenomenal music writer when it comes to Undertale tracks and stuff. Go follow his SoundCloud. Like I'll leave a link to it in the description. And same with all the other musicians at Flames at Games and all that. Go to them. Overall, Disbelief sweeps. The OST part is the only really debatable one. If someone said that Disbelief had a much better soundtrack than Last Breath, I wouldn't argue for the most part. But if they did say it was better, I'm not gonna fight them. Hey, I like them both equally. Yeah, 3 out of 1, or 2. 2 out of 1, obviously. Yeah, and also for those wanting an update on Madness, I'll make a video on that soon. Don't worry. By the time this video goes up, already have that video, probably up the day after maybe. So if you're looking for that, yeah. Just don't forget to follow my DeviantArt.